Alright, welcome to the video. Hey guys, Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the Prisma Grinlock. It is a primary weapon. It's like a Grineer scout rifle-ish kind of a weapon, like a lever action Grineer scout rifle. It's a pretty cool looking weapon. The Prisma version is going to be the best version of the Grinlock. You're going to be able to get this through Barokatir when he comes. It's going to be random. You know, he always comes with random stuff, but he'll eventually come over with the Prisma Grinlock, and if not, during the Tenno-Cons only happen once a year, but during the Tenno-Cons he has his entire inventory. So, okay, let's get into the build here. So the Prisma Grinlock is it's pretty like of a hybrid-ish weapon. Not super high crit chance, not super high status, kind of like in between. So we're going to do a pretty standard build with this. Hey, Marcellus. How are you doing today? So we're going to, first mod here is going to be Galvanized Chamber for multi-shot. Galvanized Scope for crit chance. Prime Shred for fire rate and punch through. This weapon does struggle a little bit. It's a single target weapon, so adding like almost an AoE-ish effect by adding punch through helps this weapon a lot to feel somewhat competitive with like AoE weapons. Serration for flat damage. There's another option for the Serration slot too, and I'll go over that at the end. Deadly Sequence for crit chance, and we're also going to get a sequence buff, and I'll also go over that at the end. Vital Sense for crit damage. Malignant Force and Primed Cryo rounds to make viral. If you don't have Primed Cryo rounds, use the 60/60 cold mod. Now, in Whispers content, of course, enemies are resistant to and immune to viral. So in Whispers, you want to use corrosive instead of viral. In the Exilus slot, there's not really anything too great here. I'm just going to be using Agile Aim to increase my movement speed when I'm aiming. If you want to save a forma, you can, not even have an Exilus mod on if you don't want to. But I'm going to be using Agile Aim. Primary Deadhead is going to be the Arcane. It's going to give us a large flat damage increase of 360%. A little bit more headshot multiplier. We are going to be going for headshots with this weapon. And a little bit less weapon recoil, which is going to help. Okay, so now we're going to go over the Serration slot, and we're going to be going over this Deadly Sequence here. So Sequence is a buff that you get from 3 of the different Perrin Sequence weapons. And then the Perrin Sequence also has mods for very specific weapons that give them the Sequence buff. So the Grinlock is not one of the Perrin Sequence weapons, but it does give the mod that gives the buff of the sequence. And that's what Deadly Sequence is. You get +1 sequence. So what that's going to do is it's going to trigger a little radiation explosion. The damage scales very poorly, so don't even consider that damage. But it's going to restore 25% of shields, and it's going to increase your max shield capacity by +50% for 30 seconds. So a pretty large, pretty long-lasting buff. Now, something to note with this sequence here, and I of course, I'm using a Naros, and Naros doesn't have shield, so I tested this on Hildren. And, just remember these numbers. Remember, it restores 25% shields, and it increases your max shields by 50%. So let me go over to my Hildren here. So when I was initially testing this, I was like, you know what, I'm going to test it on the biggest frame that has the biggest shields. That way I could actually, see the numbers here. And my Hildren has, 8,000 base shields. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'll get, 4,000 shields from this. That'll be a really good buff. Well, I only got 1,000. And then I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, why did I only get 1,000 when it says it gives you 50% of your shields for 30 seconds? And so what I did is I switched to this config, the empty config. I pressed, go back into it, the empty config here. And now Hildren has, without mods on her, she has a base of about 2,000 shields. So that makes sense then. It gave me half of the base shields. So when you look at that sequence buff, just think of that. It goes off of your base values, not your modded values. So let me go back to my Naros. So best case scenario, you know, Hildren, of course, has the highest shields in the game. Best case scenario, you're getting 1,000 shield capacity for 30 seconds, which is pretty good. That's a pretty significant buff for Hildren. But for other Warframes, you know, that maybe only have 500 base shields or something like that, it's going to be a lot less. But it's something extra because what we normally use in this slot when we get our crit chance, crit damage mods in here is critical delay. Now, Deadly Sequence is 200% crit. Critical Delay is 200% crit, except Critical Delay also takes a little bit of your fire rate. So Deadly Sequence is objectively better, and you get that little effect. So it's, you know, even though the effect might not be that good, this mod is still going to beat out Critical Delay. Okay, so now that I went over that, let me go over Serration here, and I will tell you what the other option for this slot is right here. And it actually is going to be Critical Delay, because all three of these crit chance mods will stack together. Scope will stack with Deadly Sequence, and both of these will stack with Critical Delay. Now, this build, as it stands with Serration, produces about 50-50 yellow and orange crits. When you put Critical Delay on over Serration, and you have three crit chance mods on, you're still not getting into full oranges. You're still looking at mostly oranges with some yellow crits sprinkled in. Now, because you're not actually seeing a large increase in crit tier, I don't feel like having three crit chance mods with the last one not really increasing your crit tier is worth it. I think just adding a little bit more base damage to make those current crits do more damage is the better option. But I tested both of them, and it's very, very hard to even see the difference in damage of both of them. So it's kind of up to you. If you want to go with Critical Delay over Serration, plop it right there. Not a big deal. I could barely see any differences in the damage, but maybe you'll like one over the other. Okay, that is everything here that I went over. So that's the mods. So in this video series, I take a weapon, I build it out, and I test it on its own merit. So I don't like to mix it with any kind of Warframe abilities, Warframe buffers, things like that. I just like to test the weapon on its own merits. And because of that, we're going to be doing it on an Inaros with no Archon shards, so nothing affects weapon damage. No mods or no arcanes on the Inaros affect weapon damage. The pet has no sentinel weapon, so he's not adding statuses that way, and he has no mods that affect weapon damage. I just keep him on so I can get vacuum and animal instincts. So, okay. We're going to take this through a 10-minute... let me make sure I didn't take Serration off. I don't think I did. No, it's still on there. Okay, cool. Take this through a 10-minute Kuva survival on Steel Path. And then after that, we're going to take it through a 10-minute Lua Conjunction survival.
Scans show Grenier are harvesting Kuva nearby. Set off the alarms to draw them out.
Now, to trigger sequence, if you look in the bottom right, I have that weird, like, triangle-looking thing that's above the Prisma Grinlock text. That is the sequence bar. So as I'm getting kills, as I get affinity, I will be increasing that sequence bar. And when it fills up, that's when the effect will trigger. I think it's about like 1,000 affinity it fills up. There we go. It just procced. So if I was using a shield frame, I would have gotten 25% shield recharge of my base shields and 50% capacity for 30 seconds. If you're using Hildren, you know, this is an okay weapon. It's not the best, of course. I mean, as you can see, it's like 1-2 shotting enemies on Steel Path here. But because it's not an AoE weapon, it's a little bit doesn't deal with like large packs of enemies very quickly. Let me move to that first set of life sports there. We'll kind of fight enemies over there instead of just always being in a hallway, because it'll make this weapon seem a lot stronger than it is if we just fight in hallways. Just because Shred, that's where Shred really is strong, is in hallways, because you can get, you know, the full punch through effect. So fighting enemies like this is a little bit better, where they're not just all lined up perfectly. So this is not the strongest weapon, but if you were to like kind of use this in conjunction with Hildren and like once in a while switch to it, get like a few kills, get a little bit of affinity with it, and have a 30-second 1,000 shield buff, like it might be kind of worth maybe. If you weren't planning to use another primary, you know, if you were planning to use another primary, it would likely be stronger than the Prisma Grinlock here. Actually, I really like the feel of this weapon. It's not super fast, but it's not super slow. Like, you don't get really, really punished if you missed a shot like you do with a lot of sniper rifles. And as you can see, we're in yellow and orange crits. So adding critical delay is going to reduce your fire rate a little bit, which is not that bad. But it's not really going to increase your crit here. You're just going to be seeing a little bit more oranges than yellows. All right, we're going to have the Acolyte up here. I have not tested this against the Acolyte yet, so we will see how it does. I think it'll be okay. Of course, you have Malice. He's the hardest one. So we always get first for some reason. My nemesis. So he's going to put the Malice bubble on me. I think it's on me. I'm going to roll out of it. Yep, there it is. And now we're going to look for Malice and try to fight him. Is he under the floorboards? I think he is. He's going to try to put another bubble on me, so I'm going to be quiet for a second. Yeah, he almost got me to kill myself there with his bubble. I put like 2 good shots into myself. All right, let me hit a few life supports. I have a bad habit of forgetting about them. Teleported me to him, of course. Please don't teleport me again.
Extraction is ready.
All right, that's Malice dead. I think every time I went up here, he was teleporting me to him, so I had to kill him before I hit this.
Critical life support levels. Extraction is your best option.
Gonna go to the next set of life supports, hit like 2 of them, and then go back to the pack of enemies to start working on them. I wish I could have gotten a better fight with Malice, where I could have shown the weapon off a little bit better. It was kind of like jumbled up with me getting life supports, him running away. But maybe the next Acolyte will give us a better fight. So this weapon really rewards headshots. You know, you're going to be getting the most out of every bullet with a headshot. It's going to be killing like most trash enemies on Steel Path. When you get higher into Steel Path, it's still gonna take maybe more 2 or 3 bullets for a trash enemy. But like right now on starter like 135 Steel Paths, it's gonna be one-shotting the trash enemies as long as you get a headshot. Body shot's gonna take 2 or 3 shots. I stole my weapon up there. Oh, someone stole it. Stole it again. Trackmaster. And anytime you see the like a purple numbers, like right there, that was the Syndicate effect triggering deadly sequence. And this one actually looks like it puts the radiation proc on enemies. So when this one triggers, it puts the radiation proc on enemies and it makes enemies fight themselves. That's actually pretty cool. The last one I tested, I believe it was Justice I tested. It does a blast proc, but doesn't actually put the proc on enemies, which was really crappy. So this one actually looks like, they get proc by it. So again, it's not going to do amazing damage. The damage does not scale well. But, like right there, again, radiation proc. So all these guys have radiation. They're going to fight each other now. Like, that's a pretty useful effect. Even though it doesn't do a lot of damage itself, it's like a little CC that happens once in a while. Yeah, hey Macias. That's exactly what it is. It's a fun weapon. It's like really cool to use. It feels kind of like cowboyish because it's like that lever action style. But it's not the best. It's not the worst Steel Path weapon, but it's definitely not the best. I try to mix like mediocre and good weapons when I do these video series. And yesterday was the Miter, which of course is a really good weapon. So I was like, I can't do another super good weapon. I have to do like a mediocre one today. So that's why I picked the Grinlock, or Prisma Grinlock rather. It's like it kind of meets that category of like good, but not like super good. I'm gonna go down here and hit this life support. Yeah, we're almost at 10 minutes here. So when I do these tests, weapons that are average usually hit about 350 to 400 kills. So we'll see where this one gets us. We'll see if we can get a better fight on this Acolyte without him just like running away all the time.
Look what our Tenno operative just found. They could not do this without him.
Now, even though my Inaros is tanky, you still don't really want to face tank an Acolyte because he will eventually kill you. So if I can, I'm just going to kind of kite him back and forth. I'm not worried about my life support anymore. If I run out, it's fine because we're only going to do the 10 minutes here.
Extraction is ready.
He teleported me somewhere between the train tracks. Yeah, a lot of people are obsessed with the meta. I understand it's fun to kill a lot of enemies, but I like to play a little bit fluffy sometimes. Like sometimes I'll try to theme a Warframe with like a weapon that's maybe not so good. Like Hydroid, for instance, I use the Tsar because it's like a big like ship cannon weapon, and I'm like, well, Hydroid's kind of like has that like, boat captain vibe going for him. Right, I think I need to change the setting where I'm fighting this guy because this is getting messy. Like being put in between train tracks. Hit the, oh, he keeps teleporting me to him. Oh, you know what? This is Mania. He has Turbulence on right now. That's why I'm not doing damage. So I'm going to have to use my melee to kill him. That's why. I'm like, why are my bullets not actually hitting him? This one, he puts Zephyr's Turbulence on himself. And, I mean, eventually it'll wear off. I just, it takes a while, and I'd rather just kill him. Here. So we weren't really able to get great Acolyte fights this time either. This guy is being a big pain in my butt, and he is eventually going to kill me if I stay here, so I got to run out of here if I can stop getting staggered. He might kill me. Alright, he's dead. So we'll head over to Extraction. So I'm at 375 kills. That's average numbers. Average weapons will hit like 350 to 400. So this being at 375 is right in between those average numbers. So not a horrible weapon, but not a great meta weapon either. We're going to take this through a quick 10 minutes of Lua Conjunction, and we'll see how it does there. Enemies there are a little bit stronger at 180 to 200, and they're mixed enemies, so they're not just all Grineer. I like doing this one first with Grineer, though, just because they're big, thick enemies that have armor. So, like, you get a good look on how the damage does against them, especially without any armor strip. So, like, without armor strip, it was doing pretty decent. Again, not as decent as some weapons, but... Yeah, they're probably the easiest faction. Yeah, they're big, thick guys who are easy to headshot. They have, like, easy head hitboxes. Okay, so let's go to Lua. Circulus. We're going to do 10 minutes here. Weapons that are like mediocre sometimes can't get past the 5-minute mark, because the 5-minute mark you get Thraxes and usually the Acolyte at the same time. So we'll see how this does at that 5 minutes, if it fails or if we'll be able to get past it. So I'm going to cast my 4 to double my armor, and that'll be the last ability I cast. Everything else will be the weapon.
Is attempting to purge you from this place. Stand by for life support.
Kill this little Drakmaster before he starts stealing my weapon. Second one here too. There he is. Got my weapon stolen, of course. I killed 2 of them, but there wasn't enough. There's another one here. So you're seeing enemies fighting each other. That's the sequence effect that just procced. Now, the effect has to come to an end before it'll let you start filling it up again. So, like, right now, it's letting me fill it up. If I get a few kills here, it's going to fill up. So, bottom right, you'll see that little triangle is filling up, and probably 1 or 2 more kills, it's going to trigger. So, if I kill this guy, maybe another guy, you'll eventually see the purple. There we go. Just triggered right there. So now everyone's going to be rad procced. And that, that's a cool thing with this weapon. It's not an amazing weapon, but it does have that like little niche ability where it'll restore your shields, it'll increase your shield capacity by a bit. By a good bit if you're playing Hildren, but by a smaller bit if you're playing anything else. Get out of here, Drakmaster. Similar weapon again. Kind of making my way slowly over to the life sports. That way I can kill these guys while I'm going there. Maybe get some little yellow life sports. Alright, I'm going to hit this first life sport here just so we can top off.
Due to the Circulus's proximity. If you have a necroneck, you may use it.
Hopefully the Acolytes will give me a good fight and I won't be in a weird area like was the second Acolyte, or he won't be like constantly running away like the first Acolyte was in the last Kuva Survival. I just want a good fight where I can kind of show the weapon's damage off. I don't think it's amazing damage against the Acolyte, but I think it'll appear better than it did in the last Kuva Survival if I can get a cleaner fight with the Acolyte. You know, of course, the deadly sequence effect doesn't really do much for Inaros because he has no shields. But I just like doing my weapon test on Inaros because he's a big dumb meat stick that is hard to kill. So I can just focus more on killing enemies around me instead of having to spam abilities to keep myself alive or like roll around on the ground with rolling guard to keep myself alive. Hit one more life support here, and then I'm going to kind of make my way to that next life support. We're almost at 4 minutes. So the Acolyte could spawn any second, and the Thraxes are going to come in about a minute. Now when the Thraxes come, they're going to be my main priority because they're going to be sucking life support. So if I don't think that was that, right? I think that's just Sentinels coming. Or Sentients, I should say.
Oculists, if they scan you, sentient fighters won't be far behind.
All right, let me hit this life support here. So we're topped up, and I'm actually going to start kind of backtracking to that next group of life supports that are going to be spawning over here. I'm going to go slowly, that way I can kill enemies on the way and collect life supports. So here comes the Acolyte. Might be able to get a cleaner fight. Immediately get staggered. Is this the Acolyte? I've never seen the Acolyte sit on the ground like this. I mean, I didn't want this clean of a fight. This is kind of weird. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kill him, but this is pretty weird. That's the first time I've ever seen that. Just like laying on the ground. He just gave up. I mean, I asked for a clean fight. I felt dirty that time. All right, I got to focus on these Thraxes because this is where I'll fail if I can't kill these guys quick enough. First one's almost dead. First one's dead. Where are you? There he is. All right, so it's definitely strong enough to make it past that first 5 minutes. That's really good, actually. A lot of average weapons don't make it this far. Let me hit. Let me try to stabilize though. I gotta get like 1 or 2 life supports. Try to stabilize my oxygen. So I'll hit these 2, and then I have to really start working on farming yellow life supports from the little guys. This one does not have an Incarnate, and I think I might have a Riven, but I don't do these tests with Rivens, just because, you know, no one's ever going to have the same Riven as you, so like there's no reason for me to like showcase these with a Riven. But there is no Incarnate mode. The only special thing about it, and I'll go over the build at the very end, is there's a certain mod that you get from the parent sequence that gives this weapon +1 sequence. So you get the parent sequence effect when you get enough affinity to fill it up. And that parent sequence effect is going to be a 25% shield recharge and a 50% shield capacity buff for 30 seconds. So a 30-second long shield capacity buff. So a pretty big, like, long-lasting buff. It's just that it only goes off of the base shields. So, like, I took my Hildren out, who, with mods, has 8,000 shields. And I was like, oh, 50%, this might give me 4,000 shields. Like, that'd be crazy. But it only gave me 1,000. And I looked at my Hildren without mods, and she's sitting at, 2,000 shields. So it goes off of base shields, not modded shields. So, Hildren being the most extreme example because she has the biggest shields, you get 1,000 capacity for 30 seconds. Like, that's really good. That's actually a pretty good buff. Might be worth using Hildren. Use it on Hildren if you have another stronger weapon to use with it. But on other frames that have, like, regular amounts of shields, like 500 shields or, like, even 700 or 800 shields, you're only going to be getting, like, little 250, 400 shield increases. Which is still nice. It's still nice. It's not nothing. And then the other part of the sequence buff is when that fills up, when that sequence bar fills up in the bottom right. Got my weapon stolen. It's going to trigger like a radiation explosion around me. So it'll cause enemies to fight each other for a little bit until it goes away. I might not be able to stabilize here. We have 1 life support coming. But it's not up yet, and I'm not killing quick enough to get a lot of the yellow life supports. Which is fair. So this weapon got us past the 5 minutes, but I think it might fail before we hit 10 minutes, just because it doesn't kill quick enough to farm the yellow life supports from trash. This is also dependent on your own skill level too. Like, maybe you can get more headshots than I can, so you'll be killing them quicker. Actually, it might get to 10 minutes, but I think we'll fail at 10 minutes. Because I went into the 5-minute mark with the Thraxes with full life support. This one I'm going into with Frigate, who I'll be at like 20% probably when they come. So it'll probably get to 10 minutes, but it'll we're going to end at 10 minutes anyway. But if we would have wanted to stay, I think it would have failed like right after it. Actually, I don't even think we'll get the Thraxes down at the 10-minute mark without running out of air. Got my weapon stolen.
Don't worry.
So we have Thraxes here now.
I have just the spot in the kennel for her.
Void manifestations drawn to this cursed
I'm missing a
place
lot of my
so
headshots on this Thrax.
They will drain your life support unless they are destroyed. The queens have sought out Warframes before. Or sought to present them with yours. We cannot let the worm have full meaning.
Collective Curse? Which one is that? Which is Collective Curse? I have a bad time with like names, remembering the names of abilities and stuff. Oh, you're probably talking about a decree, aren't you? Because you said if you've run into it with Duviri, that's probably what you're talking about. Maybe. I'm assuming. I'm still not 100% sure what a Collective Curse is. Alright, so we got both Thraxes down. And now we could just focus on the last Acolyte here, and then we'll go to Extract. So, again, my Inaros is strong, but you don't really want to face tank these guys. You want to kind of like walk back while you're shooting them, because they will beat the hell out of you. It's tempting to face tank them because they won't do a lot of damage at first, and then all of a sudden you'll just lose like, 10,000 health in a second. Oh, it gives the damage to other enemies as well. Yeah, that probably would be really good with it. And I do get this weapon frequently in Duviri for some reason. It loves giving me this weapon. And I'm not, like, too butthurt when I get this weapon. Like, again, it's a good weapon. It's just not, like, meta with the top stuff. Come on, Hank. Stop going behind me. You're giving me angst. Angst is giving me angst. Oh my goodness. But at least this one's giving me a little bit of a cleaner fight. He's not just, he's not being too slippery, and he's not laying on the ground with his face against the wall like the last one. All right, he's dead. And we are going to go to extraction. So that's 321 kills for 10 minutes. On Lua Conjunction, you are kind of guessing that you're going to get a little bit less kills because you spend a lot of time fighting the Thraxes. But, I mean, I still wouldn't expect this weapon to get a lot of kills. Like, 320 is pretty average anyway. So, yeah, it did average numbers for the Kuva Survival. It did average numbers for Lua Conjunction. So, didn't really do too bad in either one of them. But it did technically not get me through 10 minutes. I ran out of air while fighting the Thraxes at the 10-minute mark. So, we'll go over the build one more time with the Prisma Grinlock here. Okay. So, Prisma Grinlock. It is a primary weapon. It's a Grineer, like, lever action scout rifle-ish kind of a thing. It's the Prisma version, which is going to be the better version of the Grinlock. There's like a base Grinlock, which is even crappier. So I wouldn't spend a lot of resources on the base Grinlock. But if you can get the Prisma Grinlock through Barrow Katir, it's going to have a bit increased stats. So that's the one you're going to want to invest in if you want to. So for the weapon here, it's a like pretty basic hybrid weapon. It's got okay status, it's got okay crit. It's not too bad in one, and it's not too great in the other either. It's pretty hybrid-ish. Galvanized Chamber is going to be for multi-shot. Galvanized Scope is going to be for crit chance. Prime Shred is going to be for fire rate and punch through. Punch through is going to be important to give this weapon a little bit of extra damage by hitting multiple targets at once. Serration for flat damage. There's another option for this slot, and I'll go over it at the end. Deadly Sequence for crit chance, and you get the plus sequence effect, which I'll also go over at the end. Vital Sense for crit damage. Malignant Force and Primed Cryo Rounds to make viral. If you don't have Primed Cryo Rounds, use the 60-60 cold mod. Don't use the 90 cold mod. The 90 cold mod is too much in the middle. You don't get enough flat damage like you do with the primed cryo rounds, and you don't get any status like you would with the 60-60 cold. So either use the 60-60 cold or use the big primed cryo rounds, one or the other. Now, if you're playing Whispers content, of course, enemies there are resistant to and immune to viral, so don't use viral in Whispers content. Use corrosive instead. In the Exilus slot, there's nothing too great here. I'm going to go with Agile Aim just because it's going to increase my movement speed while I'm aiming, but if you wanted to save a format, you could probably just even take this off and not use any Exilus. Primary Deadhead is going to be for a large flat damage increase of 360%. It's going to give you a 30% headshot multiplier and a little bit less weapon recoil, which is going to help a lot. Okay, now to go over those two slots here. So Serration and Deadly Sequence. We're going to kind of go over them together, but So Serration, a lot of people don't like using it because, it's flat damage on top of flat damage that you get on Primary Deadhead here, and I understand that. So the option for this slot, the other option, is going to be Critical Delay. Now, usually we use Critical Delay here, and we mix it with Vital Sense with a lot of our builds. And it's because it's 200% crit and 120% crit damage. But this weapon has a Grinlock specific mod called Deadly Sequence, which is also going to give us 200% crit chance, but it doesn't give us the negative fire rate like this one does. So this one is going to be objectively better, and it gives us plus sequence. Now, Critical Delay can stack with both Deadly Sequence and Galvanized Scope. And if I was to take off, I have to take off both of these. I could plop on Critical Delay, so you can see it stacks. It allows me to put it on. Now, the problem, and the reason I don't run Critical Delay, but you can if you want, you could try it out, is that with Serration, so with my current build, this is hitting about 50-50 yellow crits and orange crits. if you put critical delay on here, you're still not getting into full oranges. You're still at like it'll increase you to mostly oranges with a few yellow crits sprinkled in, but you're still not at full oranges. So and at that point, you're spending 3 mod slots to increase crit chance to not really get that much more of an effect out of it. And so I would rather use Serration to increase base damage to make the current crits a little bit stronger. But that all being said, I tested both of them, and they were so close in damage, I could barely tell what was better. So that's up to you. If you want to use the critical delay instead of Serration, you can use that as well. Thanks, Zacchaeus. And then finally here, we'll go over, well, actually, let me put on my little Agile aim first, because that's going to irk me. I have a little bit of OCD seeing a mod slot empty. Okay, so deadly sequence here. If you look at it, it's going to, after you gain affinity, it's about 1,000 affinity. It'll fill the meter, and it's going to trigger an explosion, a radiation explosion. Very poor damage. The damage does not scale like with the weapon, so it's going to be poor damage. But it's going to put a radiation effect on enemies around you, and they're going to start fighting each other, of course, because of the radiation. Now, it's also going to restore 25% of your shields, and it's going to increase your max shield capacity by plus 50% for 30 seconds. Now, of course, Inaros doesn't have shields, but what I did when I saw this, I was like, all right, let me test and bring the most like extreme example, and that would be Hildren. So I went over to my Hildren here, and I was like, okay, you know, it's going to increase her shield capacity by 50%. Like that's really good. So I'm at, with my mods, I'm at 8,000 shields. So I had thought, oh, maybe I'll get 4,000 shields then. But I only got 1,000. And so I was like, let me look into this a little bit. So I took all my mods off, and I'm looking here, and she has a base shield rating of about 2,000. So that's what it is. It goes off of base shields. It doesn't go off of modded shields. And it's the same thing for the shield recharge effect, the 25% shield recharge. So looking at the Prisma Grinlock here and looking at the deadly sequence and the effect here, it goes off of base shields. So in the most extreme example, using Hildren, it'll be 1,000 extra shield capacity for 30 seconds, which is pretty good actually on Hildren. But on regular Warframes that have a much lower base shield, it's going to be a much lower increase. But hey, it's still something, right? I mean, it's a positive. It's not like you like deadly sequence is objectively better than critical delay. So at least you're getting a positive there. So, all right, I think I've over-explained that enough. That was pretty much all the build here with the Grinlock and everything to go over. I hope you guys liked it. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much.